When the galactic historians speak of humanity's rise among the stars, they tell tales of grand admirals commanding massive fleets, of presidents signing historic treaties with alien civilizations, of famous scientists unlocking the secrets of faster-than-light travel. But today we're not talking about those names etched in the history books. Today we're talking about the ones who never made the headlines, the ones who bled in the shadows, who sacrificed in silence, who built our galactic civilization, one anonymous act of courage at a time. Welcome back to the channel. For those just joining us, we explore humanity's place in the cosmos through the lens of our unique qualities. Some call us death worlders, others call us terrifying. We call ourselves human. Before we dive in, take a second to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, the aliens would want you to. The year is 2157. Humanity has just developed its first viable colony ships. The journey to Proxima Centauri would take 15 years, even with our most advanced engines. 15 years in a metal can, hurtling through the void. Who would volunteer for such a mission? The history books remember Captain Elena Rodriguez, who stood proudly on the bridge as the Horizon I departed Earth orbit. But they rarely mention Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto. Yamamoto wasn't chosen for his charisma or leadership. He was chosen because he could keep the life support systems running when everything went to hell. And go to hell they did. 3 years into the journey, a micrometeoroid struck the Horizon I's primary oxygen recycler. The official report states, the issue was resolved with minimal disruption to the mission. What it doesn't mention is that Yamamoto worked for 72 hours straight in a section of the ship exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. He fixed the recycler, saved the 500 colonists on board, and received a lethal dose of radiation in the process. He spent the remaining 12 years of the journey slowly dying, training his replacement, and never once requesting to turn the ship around. When they reached Proxima Centauri, he was the first human to be buried on an exoplanet. The colonists named their first settlement Yamamoto's Landing. Today it's just called Landing City, and few remember why. Then there were the terraformers. Dr. Sarah Chen led the team that transformed Mars from a barren wasteland to humanity's second home. But her team included over 200 specialists who worked in the most hostile conditions imaginable. 37 of them died when the first atmospheric processor exploded on Olympus Mons. Their names are on a small plaque at the base of the mountain. How many of us could name even one? The psychological toll was perhaps the heaviest burden. The deep space isolation syndrome claimed more lives than equipment failures ever did. The counselors and psychologists who kept our pioneers sane received no medals, no monuments, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing they made our expansion possible. When humanity finally encountered other intelligent species, we needed a special kind of hero. Not warriors, but communicators. The Galactic Council records show that Ambassador Jonathan Pierce negotiated humanity's entry into the interstellar community. What they don't show is that Pierce was actually the third ambassador sent. The first two disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Lian Wei was a linguistic specialist attached to the first contact team that met the Zorlak Confederation. The Zorlak communicate through a combination of pheromones, gestures, and subsonic vocalizations, completely incompatible with human biology. Wei spent 3 years developing a translation algorithm, testing it on herself despite the neurological damage caused by exposure to Zorlak pheromones. By the time the algorithm was perfected, she had lost her ability to speak human languages. She lives today in a specialized facility on Alpha Centauri, still serving as a bridge between our species, though she can no longer communicate with her own kind. The treaty that prevents war between humans and the Zorlak bears ambassador, Pierce's signature, not hers. The cultural integration experts face challenges just as daunting. Dr. Marcus Okafor, specialized in helping human colonies adapt to alien cultural norms when establishing outposts on shared worlds. During the Rigelian Crisis, when a misunderstanding over funeral rites nearly led to interstellar war, it was Okafor who offered his own body as a demonstration of human burial practices, allowing the Rigelians to perform their sacred examinations without desecrating an actual corpse. He survived, barely, and prevented a conflict that could have cost millions of lives. His name appears in exactly one footnote in the official report. Not all heroes carried diplomatic pouches or wrenches. Some carried weapons, not for conquest, but for protection. The border patrol units established after the Treaty of Arcturus had perhaps the most thankless job in human space. Too far from home for regular rotation, too isolated for proper support, they stood guard against threats, both known and unknown. Lieutenant Commander Sofia Diaz commanded Outpost Theta 9 on the edge of the Cygnus Void. When the outpost's sensors detected an anomaly approaching human space in 2219, protocol dictated she report it and wait for reinforcements. The anomaly was moving too fast. Reinforcements would arrive 3 days too late. Diaz took her patrol ship, a vessel with roughly 1/10 the firepower of a proper warship, and intercepted the anomaly. What she found was a Krazak hunting fleet, a species humanity hadn't yet encountered with technology far superior to our own. The official record states that Outpost Theta 9 was destroyed in an accidental containment breach. What actually happened was that Diaz overloaded her ship's reactor directly in the path of the Krazak fleet. The resulting explosion created a subspace distortion that not only destroyed the fleet, but also created a navigational hazard that prevented further Krazak incursions for decades. By the time we formally met the Krazak, our technology had advanced enough to establish peaceful relations. They never knew how close they came to conquering us, or the sacrifice that prevented it. The mining colony on Deimos 4 was considered so unimportant that it didn't even warrant a permanent military presence. Just a small security detail led by Sergeant Carlos Mendez, a veteran considered too old for frontline service. When pirates attacked the colony in 2231, Mendez and his team of 12 security officers faced over 100 heavily armed attackers. The colonists had nowhere to run. The nearest help was 2 weeks away. Mendez used his knowledge of the mining tunnels to wage a guerrilla war against the pirates. For 11 days, his team struck from the shadows, using mining explosives as improvised weapons, collapsing tunnels to trap enemy forces, and creating the illusion of a much larger defending force. By the time reinforcements arrived, Mendez and 2 of his officers were the only survivors of the security team. But they had protected all 342 colonists and eliminated 78 pirates. The mining colony was saved. Production resumed within a month, and Sergeant Mendez returned to his regular duties without so much as a commendation. The sacrifice at Proxima Centauri perhaps best exemplifies the forgotten nature of these heroes. When the colony faced an extinction-level solar flare in 2245, the planetary shield generators failed. The only option was to position ships in orbit to absorb the radiation. Captain Hiroshi Tanaka volunteered his vessel, the merchant freighter Sakura Maru. It wasn't designed for such conditions. Everyone knew it was a suicide mission, but the Sakura Maru's position would shield the colony's main habitation dome. What the history books don't tell you is that Tanaka wasn't alone. 15 other merchant captains positioned their vessels alongside his, creating a makeshift shield that saved over 30,000 colonists. None of the ships survived. None of the crews survived. And because they were civilian merchants, not military personnel, their sacrifice wasn't recorded with the same reverence as a military operation. Their names are known only to the families they left behind. Science has always been the backbone of human expansion, but for every celebrated breakthrough, countless researchers worked in obscurity, often at tremendous personal risk. Dr. Alina Petrova led a team of xenobiologists studying the native flora of Epsilon Eridani b. When a mysterious illness began affecting the colony, conventional medicine proved useless. Petrova recognized that the illness resembled the defense mechanism of a local plant species. Working without proper equipment, isolated from Earth's medical databases, she and her team infected themselves with controlled doses of the pathogen to study its progression. 3 of her researchers died in the process. Petrova herself lost her eyesight permanently. But they developed a treatment that saved the colony from certain doom. The pharmaceutical company that later refined their work into a marketable drug named it after their CEO. The physics team that discovered practical faster-than-light travel is celebrated in every history book. Dr. Elias Kaminsky and Dr. Wei Chen are household names, but their breakthrough would have been impossible without the work of Dr. Fatima Al-Jabri, who died testing an early prototype. The official record lists her death as equipment malfunction during routine testing. What actually happened was that she detected a fatal flaw in the drive design seconds before activation. Rather than abort the test, which would have destroyed the entire facility and set FTO research back by decades, she manually contained the reaction, absorbing a lethal dose of tachyon radiation. Her notes, recorded in her final moments, provided the key insights that allowed Kaminsky and Chen to perfect the drive 2 years later. Her name appears only in the acknowledgments section of their groundbreaking paper. Behind every explorer, every soldier, every scientist stood an invisible army of support personnel who made their work possible. The supply chain managers who calculated to the gram how much food, medicine, and equipment each colony needed to survive. People like logistics officer Thomas Mbeki, who during the Arcturus blockade rerouted critical supplies through 17 different star systems to reach isolated human colonies. When the Arcturus gate collapsed in 2267, cutting off 12 human colonies from the rest of human space, it was Mbeki who developed the long route that kept those colonies alive during the 3 years it took to rebuild the gate. The 18-month journey required precise calculations and coordination between dozens of ships. Mbeki died of stress-induced heart failure 6 months before the gate was restored. His replacement received the commendation for the successful operation. The communication relay technicians lived perhaps the loneliest existence of all. Stationed on tiny outposts in the void between stars, they maintained the quantum entanglement networks that allowed instantaneous communication across human space. Technician First Class Aisha Okonkwo spent 15 years on Relay Station Echo 7, a facility so small it didn't even have artificial gravity. When the station was damaged by a rogue comet in 2278, protocol dictated she abandon it and wait for rescue. Instead, she spent 3 days in vacuum conditions, wearing a damaged EVA suit, manually realigning the quantum array. Her actions prevented a communications blackout that would have affected 17 colonies and 32 ships in transit. She survived, but radiation exposure and oxygen deprivation left her with permanent neurological damage. She lives today in an assisted care facility on Mars, one of thousands of support personnel whose sacrifices enabled our expansion, but whose names remain unknown. When disaster struck, as it inevitably did on the frontier of human expansion, a special breed of hero emerged. Those who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. The Arcturus incident of 2289 is recorded as a minor radiation leak at the Arcturus Prime power facility. The reality was far more terrifying. A cascading failure in the antimatter containment system threatened not just the facility, but the entire planet. Emergency Response Team Delta, led by Commander Jamal Ibrahim, had exactly 47 minutes to prevent a planetary extinction event. The only solution was to manually separate the antimatter storage units and jettison them into space. a procedure that had never been attempted outside of simulation. Ibrahim and his team of 7 entered a chamber flooded with enough radiation to kill them within minutes. Working with failing equipment, in conditions that melted their protective suits, they separated all 14 containment units. The official death toll from the incident was listed as 8, Ibrahim's team. What wasn't recorded was that their actions saved 4.7 million colonists. The subsequent investigation focused on preventing future containment failures, not on commemorating their sacrifice. The plague on New Montana tested humanity's resolve like few other crises. When a mutated strain of an alien pathogen began spreading through the colony in 2295, Earth's response was to impose a strict quarantine. No ships in, no ships out. Dr. Sophia Chen, an epidemiologist with the Colonial Health Organization, violated direct orders by smuggling herself onto the planet. She brought experimental treatments and her own expertise, knowing she would not be allowed to leave until the crisis was resolved, if ever. For 3 years, she lived among the infected, developing treatments through trial and error, watching colonists die by the thousands, despite her best efforts. When she finally synthesized an effective vaccine, she tested it on herself first. The vaccine worked. The quarantine was lifted. Dr. Chen was officially reprimanded for violating quarantine protocols, and her research was classified for public safety reasons. The pharmaceutical corporation that later manufactured the vaccine named it Montana X, with no mention of its creator. Perhaps most terrifying of all were the void entities, encountered in 2302 at the edge of explored space. These non-corporeal beings could possess human hosts, turning them against their own kind. When they infiltrated the research station on Tau Ceti, the military's response was to nuke the entire facility from orbit. But before that order could be carried out, Security Officer Maya Patel implemented her own solution. Recognizing that the entities could only possess one host at a time, she locked herself in the station's central chamber with all 5 known infected personnel. For 72 hours, she fought a psychological battle against the entities, who jumped from host to host, trying to break her resolve. She had no weapons, no backup, no hope of survival. Just her own indomitable will and a plan to lure the entities into the station's reactor core. When the military finally breached the station, they found Patel barely alive, surrounded by the bodies of the infected. The entities were gone, apparently destroyed when she triggered a localized overload in the reactor's containment field, a precision strike that eliminated the threat without destroying the station. Patel survived, but the psychological trauma left her unable to communicate what she had experienced. The official report lists her actions as heroic but unnecessary, suggesting the orbital strike would have been more efficient. What the report doesn't mention is that the entities had already begun transmitting their consciousness to Earth through the station's communication array. Patel's action didn't just save the station. It potentially saved our entire species. These forgotten heroes shaped humanity's expansion in ways we rarely acknowledge. Their sacrifices became the foundation upon which our galactic civilization was built. But perhaps more importantly, they taught the other species of the galaxy something crucial about humans. The Zorlak Confederation has a saying, "Humans don't die for glory, they die for each other." It's both a compliment and a warning. The Rigelian Conclave includes a specific tactical doctrine. Never corner a human who has others to protect. Even the warlike Krazak, who values strength above all else, have developed a healthy respect for what they call the human paradox. Our ability to be simultaneously fragile as individuals, yet unstoppable as a collective, especially when protecting our own. What these alien observers recognized, and what we sometimes forget, is that humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology, our intelligence, or even our adaptability. It's our willingness to sacrifice for each other, often without recognition or reward. The colony ship engineer, who absorbs a lethal dose of radiation to save 500 strangers. The diplomat, who loses her ability to speak her native language to prevent an interstellar war. The security officer, who stands alone against an incomprehensible alien threat. These aren't just acts of heroism. They're expressions of something fundamentally human, something that has carried us from the caves of Earth to the stars beyond, and will carry us further still. The next time you look up at the night sky, remember that humanity's path to the stars wasn't paved by the famous names in history books alone. It was built on the sacrifices of countless individuals who gave everything they had, often receiving nothing in return but the knowledge that humanity would continue. Their stories may be forgotten by history, but their legacy lives on in every human colony, every treaty, every technological breakthrough that defines our place in the galaxy. And perhaps that's the most human thing of all. This willingness to fade into anonymity, to be forgotten by the very civilization you helped build, as long as that civilization endures. Today, as humanity pushes further into the unknown, new heroes emerge in the shadows of our expansion. The deep space surveyors mapping regions no human has ever seen. The exoanthropologists living among newly discovered species, building bridges of understanding one cultural misunderstanding at a time. Images of modern frontier outposts and research stations. Consider Dr. Malik Rahman, currently embedded with the crystalline Tholians in the Cygnus Reach. For the past 7 years, he has been the only human in a civilization that considers our biology disturbingly fluid. The atmospheric composition on the Tholian homeworld slowly dissolves human lung tissue, requiring monthly regenerative treatments. Such an action might have permanent regenerative treatment. Rahman continues his work despite knowing that prolonged exposure will eventually cause permanent damage. His research has prevented 3 potential conflicts between our species. Yet outside of specialized academic circles, his name remains unknown. Or take the case of the Oort Cloud Maintenance Corps, the men and women who maintain the early warning system at the very edge of our solar system. Their 3-year rotations in the most isolated outposts humanity has ever built have the highest suicide rate of any profession. Yet there is never a shortage of volunteers, because they understand that their vigilance is the first line of defense for Earth and all her colonies. When technician Zoe Alvarez detected the quantum signature of what would later be identified as the Void Entity's second incursion, she manually boosted the signal through 7 relay stations, burning out each one in succession. Now, image of a lone outpost against the blackness of deep space. The warning reached Earth 14 hours before the entities themselves. Those 14 hours allowed for the deployment of the psychic shield network that ultimately repelled the invasion. Alvarez's outpost went dark immediately after transmitting the warning. No rescue mission was attempted. The resources were needed for the defense of more populated areas. 3 years later, a routine patrol found her outpost still operational. Alvarez had survived alone, without support or communication, continuing to monitor the sector despite believing that her warning had never been received. When asked why she hadn't abandoned her post, she reportedly said, "Because someone needed to keep watching." She returned to duty after 6 months of mandatory recovery. Perhaps the most telling perspective on humanity's forgotten heroes comes not from our own records, but from alien observations. The Arcturian Diplomatic Corps maintains what they call the Human Sacrifice Index, a statistical analysis of how frequently humans willingly die for causes, principles, or other beings. Their conclusion? Classified until a data breach revealed it 50 years ago, is both flattering and disturbing. Humans demonstrate a capacity for self-sacrifice that exceeds all known sentient species by a factor of 7.3. This trait makes them simultaneously the most valuable allies and the most dangerous opponents in the known galaxy. When a human determines that a cause is worth dying for, no amount of logical argumentation or threat of personal harm will dissuade them. This irrational commitment to values over survival appears to be a species-wide trait rather than an aberration. The Zorlak, with their hive-mind social structure, find our individualistic heroism particularly fascinating. Their anthropological records contain thousands of case studies of human sacrifice, categorized and analyzed with scientific precision. Their conclusion, being the human paradox, is that their greatest strength emerges precisely at the moment of their greatest vulnerability. When a human accepts death as inevitable, they achieve a kind of freedom that makes them capable of actions that should be statistically impossible. We have no biological or evolutionary explanation for this phenomenon. Even the machine intelligence collective known as the Synthesis has devoted considerable computational resources to understanding human heroism. Their assessment is perhaps the most clinical. Human heroes represent statistical anomalies that nevertheless occur with predictable frequency across human populations. The willingness to terminate individual existence for collective benefit appears irrational on an evolutionary level, yet persists as a core human trait. This suggests either a fundamental flaw in our understanding of evolution or a unique aspect of human consciousness that our algorithms cannot yet model. What these alien observers recognize, sometimes more clearly than we do ourselves, is that humanity's journey to the stars has always been paved with sacrifice. Not just the grand, celebrated sacrifices of famous explorers and leaders, but the quiet, anonymous sacrifices of ordinary people who saw what needed to be done and did it, regardless of the cost. As humanity continues to expand, as our technology advances and our borders push ever outward, the nature of heroism evolves, but its essence remains the same. The quantum engineers working on the bleeding edge of reality manipulation. The consciousness transfer specialists helping humans adapt to environments that would kill our biological forms. The deep space psychologists treating the new mental disorders that emerge when humans confront the true scale of the cosmos. These are the heroes of tomorrow, working in fields we're only beginning to understand, facing challenges we can barely comprehend. Many of them will die in ways that defy explanation. Others will sacrifice aspects of their humanity that we currently consider essential. All of them will contribute to our continued expansion in ways that future generations may never fully appreciate. Consider the consciousness pioneers currently volunteering for the Transcendence Project. By allowing their minds to be uploaded into experimental quantum matrices, they are exploring realms of existence beyond conventional space-time. Many never return to their biological forms. Those who do often come back changed in ways that make them permanently alien to other humans. Yet they continue, pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human, exploring frontiers that exist beyond physical space. Their discoveries have already revolutionized our understanding of reality itself, though the cost to the pioneers remains incalculable. Or the deep space colonists establishing humanity's first extragalactic presence in the small Magellanic Cloud. The journey takes decades, even with our most advanced FTL technology. The colonists know they will never see Earth again, never rejoin the civilization they left behind. They go anyway, extending humanity's reach not just across our galaxy but beyond it, ensuring that even if catastrophe befalls the Milky Way, some fragment of humanity will continue among the stars. These forgotten heroes, past, present, and future, share one common trait. They acted not for recognition, but because they saw something that needed to be done and did it, regardless of the personal cost. In that sense, heroism isn't reserved for those with special abilities or unique opportunities. It's available to all of us, in ways both large and small, whenever we choose the greater good over personal benefit. So here's my question to you. Who are the forgotten heroes in your life? The people whose sacrifices made your existence possible, but whose names history may never record. Share their stories in the comments below. Let's create our own monument to the forgotten heroes, not carved in stone, but written in our collective memory. And if you found value in this exploration of humanity's unsung champions, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to uncover the hidden aspects of humanity's journey among the stars, the triumphs and tragedies that define us as a species. Remember, in the grand tapestry of human expansion, every thread matters, even the ones that remain invisible to most eyes. This is Humanity's Story signing off. Until next time, look to the stars. And remember those who helped us reach them. Oh, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.